Good morning and welcome to a panel of the Psalm Study Group. We will have one more person joining us, Nancy Brown, shortly. And our whole idea was to share with you what we've done over the past 5 years on Zoom and specifically focusing on Advent. So that's why we say Zooming to Advent. So advancing to the next slide. Carolyn. Oh, wait, I can do this, right? I pushed the red one. You did it. Okay. All right. So, how did we come about? Well, in March of 2020, we all had to go indoors and stay at home and not come to church. And for some of us, that was a very unpleasant change in our lifestyle. So we got started on Zoom there were two groups originally, and ultimately we boiled down to one on Tuesday mornings, 10:30 to 11:30. And here we are 5 years later, and we're still going strong. So we've covered Advent on 5 occasions now. And the first year, there wasn't a lot of, there wasn't too much planning going on. But by the time we got to 2021, Lori Tabiri had come to join us. And she sent us an email and said, how about we look at the Canticles of Luke, the 4 songs in Luke? The following year, she said, that went so well. How about we do nativity stories in Matthew? Then we had the idea, because we're very musically oriented at this church, to talk about our favorite sacred music for Christmas time. So for many of us, that meant a carol that harkened back to childhood. 2024, Conversations on the Nativity. And then this year, it was our favorite creches. So going ahead to the next slide. So our process was, none of this would have happened without our beloved Marie Gibson.
Exactly.
She has been the rock of our group for 5 years. Okay. Nancy, you're up here. Come on up. Yes, please join us. So Nancy has been a stalwart of our group as well. So for example, in 2023, when we wanted to do our musical experience, she sent out repeated emails, got our ducks in a row. Okay, Mary Reese and Lori will do November 28th. We'll have Kim McConnell and Grania on December 12th, for example, right? So, and then Marie said, I'll bring this all up together on January 2nd. I'll choose something, right? Yeah. So she was just great that way. And here's an example. So our process was that we would come up with art, and often it was Marie who was locating these beautiful art paintings for us. Then we'd have some music, and then whoever was responsible or was sharing that day, we would have our commentary. So we would lead a discussion of the group. That's what you're looking at. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do two at once. Okay, so here's some art. So these are the gorgeous things that Marie would find for us, and some of us started to develop a little skill in this area as well, but Marie got us started. Would just find these things, and just looking at them, we would meditate on them, and we would give ourselves a little art education. And just sort of get into the spirit of Advent by having these experiences with art and music, right? And then we would lead the discussion. So, and this is an example of how Marie would, kind of keep us on track. So yeah, exactly. And she would bring the whole church into it. So this is a message that an email she posted to eConnect back in 2021. This is how she would kind of give us a sense of, what we were doing on 2021. Was it the Canticles? Yeah. So she would say, we're going to talk about these pictures. And she described how we viewed the paintings and we shared our thoughts. And so sometimes she would be giving us an advance notice of what was going to happen. Sometimes she would be reporting on what we had done. But this way, it wasn't just limited to the people who happened to Zoom that day. It became something that the whole church could participate in. So that was special.
Can you go back to the other art for a minute?
Okay, sure.
Because I want to share something.
Oops. Okay.
Okay, one of the things I think that is important that we share is that that first picture there is by an artist by the name of Tanner, and he is an African-American painter. And he was one of the earlier African-American painters that did this type of religious artwork. So a lot of what we talked about was not just religious, it was also cultural. So we were bringing in the whole thing. And I don't know if that was a time when Penny was with us.
Probably.
Probably. So
yeah.
Penny, in the very beginning, Penny, we all know our beloved Penny, was very important to us because she brought that other aspect to us. We would be complaining, oh, the Psalms are so, right? And she would say, well, for my people, the Psalms were what it was all about. It's what kept us going. And we started to understand the language. The fear of God was not necessarily the fear of God, but the respect of God. So anyway,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, very
That's
good. Thank
a little
you.
bit of what I
Yeah, and feel free to jump in, Grania and Nancy, anytime. Okay. So this is,
Thank you.
thank you. Sure. This PowerPoint is just meant to be a kind of a snapshot of how things went for us.
Yeah.
So then in 2022 was when we did the nativity stories, and here's how Lori kind of organized us around that, got us to thinking about what Matthew nativity stories might look like. So the dreams, the story of the Magi. Oops, did I not do that? Yep, I'm sorry. I'm not. Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you. All right. Teamwork, always, always. Okay. The red one. Okay. But we're good. We're good for right now. Okay. So this was, so Lori was really, really helpful through this process in those first couple of years. This is just some things that, again, we have, I can share with you many images. So the Canticles, we had like 4, but then we went crazy and we had dozens and dozens of pictures of the Magi. And they were just, and so many things to think about and say about, what these representations meant, and art that had been created over centuries, right? Mosaics, things from the medieval time, to earlier. And this was something that, so we had these kind of sort of tangential things. So not just, as Marie was saying, cultural, right? So we would have the scripture, but then here was something that I found especially charming. And Mary Bookout actually gave me a copy of this book. She drove to my house and gave it to me because she saw how it was meaningful to me, right? So we were able to just make Advent such a rich experience by having all of these, just each person having responsibility for some time, and then we would fill it out with, and it was up to us. It was very personal. It didn't have to be, this is how we do this thing. So in 2020,
I was just
oh,
gonna
yeah.
say, I love the image on the left, the 3 wise men bundling in a bed. So a lot of the images led to really delightful conversations, and there was a lot of humor in the images. So it was a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and that's not the only one of them, all 3 in a bed together. That's what that was a thing, like a common thing for a few centuries there. It was really interesting. So then 2023, okay, we're up to that. Oh, our favorite carols. Like I said, we're all crazy musicians here in this congregation. So we would find YouTube videos of performances, and then I think I actually played on my violin. Do you remember? Still,
Yes,
still,
yes.
still. Yeah, for you. And so it was just, it was a guaranteed high point for every Advent Tuesday morning, all the crazy busyness of the season. We would just sit down together and boom, there we were, with these long relationships building. So I just thought it was very lovely. 2023. So, and Lori was again very helpful here. She gave us some questions about the sacred music. Why did you choose it? What is the theology being expressed? What do these songs promise? Are they challenging or comforting? What feelings do they evoke? Do the tunes marry well to the words? How do more modern carols compare to the older ones? So it was, again, so we engaged our intellects and our hearts, I feel, during these sessions. 2024, we moved on to just sort of building, I think, a little bit on the Matthew stories. So we started asking some questions. Oops. Dreams and angels, for example. Who was at the inn? The whole question of whether there was a manger or not is when we got started on that one. We're still working on that one. What about the wise men? Controversies of the birth of Jesus. So again, this is Marie convening us and forcing us to make a choice, right, Marie? Sometimes, it's the day, you got to do it. Arr. Okay, I actually got kind of crazy with the PowerPoints, and I made one for that year when we did angels and dreams. And you learn a lot about your faith when you're having to get down to the nitty gritty of, okay, what was Joseph's dream? What was the Annunciation? That was actually an interaction with the angel Gabriel. That wasn't just like, okay, I something happened when I fell asleep, right? So it really gave us a chance to really grapple with some things when we had our sessions, and then we had our captive audience, and and then they would offer thoughts, and it was just a lovely thing. So here we are this year. Our favorite crushes. This is Mary Bookouts. So if you see, it's a plant starter kit, right? So she's got her grow lights down there, right? Terrarium. Okay, and then up here she's got her nativity set. How lovely is that, right? And then this was something that Grania shared with us that we thought was just so beautiful. This folk art in a box,
I'll
right?
just say a word about it.
Sure.
This is a nativity. It's all one piece, carved and from wood. And it was given to my parents when we lived in Mexico in 1956 and made by a person in the village where we were living. And I've always loved it, even though it's missing two of the wise men, not because I lost them, but because that's how the person that carved it did it. It's got quite a number of animals, and so he seemed to really like the animals, but it was a pretty rural area, a village called Valle de Bravo that we lived in. So
Yeah. And we were intrigued by how here's the baby Jesus, like just born, right? But he's sitting up looking
And he's
pretty
big.
older,
he's
right? He's like
he's
kinda-
big,
Yeah.
bigger than most of the other figures. So it's like that's who it's about.
Yeah. And he's holding the cross, right? So
Yes.
he's just, kind of preparing everybody for the whole story, so we love that one. The next one is, Maria and I, she went online and found some charming nativity sets. And I happened to be in St. Anne's Catholic Church on Mount Hope Avenue, and they had a whole display of from various countries. So here's a creche from Ghana, and this one, Nepal, right? Not many Christians in Nepal, it says, like 2%. And yet, and it is a place where Christians have been persecuted. But here they have things that are, very culturally appropriate for them. Yaks, right? So not many of us have seen a creche with a yak in it, but and we were commenting on how the art would be sometimes very spare, and so you just had to have like a couple of lines of felt to imply an entire stable, right? So we love our music, we love our art at downtown. So this was something that I came across since we were doing a little bit of music this year. I showed everybody Handel's birth church. Here's where he was baptized. So do you see that organ back there? That's a heck of an organ, right? We say our organ is big for our space, but there's an organ, right? And of course, Handel is the creator of the Messiah, which was such a meaningful piece because it isn't like an opera with actors and the storyline. It's pieces of scripture, and you kind of meditate on them as you hear the music, right? So maybe that's why the Messiah has lasted all these centuries. It's not like a movie about Jesus, his birth or his life, but it gives you an opportunity to hear and feel and think about, what are these stories. And then, this was a beautiful poem that Marie found for us. And she read it at the end of our last session, and we were all kind of tearful. I was. Were you? Because it was so beautiful. So, yeah, yeah.
In Bethlehem.
I may be reading this as part of Lessons and Carols.
Yay.
I'm not sure.
It's just gorgeous.
Script is there.
We can read it
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah. So in conclusion, 2026 and beyond, we'll see. As long as the group's alive, we have ideas. There's always something, and this time of year rolls around, and we get to saying, what should we do this year? So, okay. So I want to turn it over now to everybody else. If you are interested, there are several folders of the art that we had. And Carolyn can pull up any one of there's one for each year. So we could start with, I think the pictures of the Magi are the most fun. So that year was 2022, I think. It says Magi on the folder. Do you see it? Okay. Yeah, 2022, it was the Magi. So if you click on the folder and you click on the first picture, okay, and then you go to full screen, and then you can use the arrows to move through the pictures. So there's a picture of three Magi from a mosaic from long ago, like the 5th century or something, I don't know. You can arrow forward. There's our three guys in bed.
Well, the other thing too is the angel.
Mhm.
The angel is there. I mean, angels are pretty important at Christmas time. Do you need me to talk into that? Yeah, angels are important at Christmas for all of us. Some of us have angels on top of our trees or on the piano or somewhere. The angel went to Mary the angel went to Joseph, and the angel went to the three magi's. So, do we believe in angels? We would talk about things like that. We still do. Some do and some don't. And we are never, we don't judge one another in our thoughts or our thinking. We share very freely. And one person will say something and the other will say, oh yeah, it's like it opens your eyes, opens your heart about the story of the Nativity, because we all know, some of us think it's a myth. And part of it probably is, if you think about what really happened and how it happened. Is Mary Book out here? Do we know if she's?
She can't.
Oh,
be
that's
here.
too bad. Mary is wonderful. She has this enormous capacity for history and her teaching. And of course, Nancy too, being that she had seminary, had some of that background and all the resources at her fingertips. So we were able to talk very freely and still do, which make this time each Tuesday important and exciting. And it makes scripture and the time of Advent, Lent, very real. Want to say something?
Just a little bit. When I joined the Psalms group, which I believe was in 2022, was after it had already started, I was sort of torn between feeling like I am the most ignorant biblically than anybody in the group. And I shouldn't open my mouth. I should just listen and learn. But it turned out that people were not judgmental, and it became a community to me and a group of friends and a loving environment rather than a sort of like school where you're graded. So, so I have learned a tremendous amount. Probably not all of it'll stick, but particularly from these three, because Nancy is so knowledgeable, having gone to divinity school. So she's really great at sort of sparking discussion. And Pat is just a natural presenter, and she always has the facts at her hand. And Marie is just an inspirational organizer for this group. I mean, every time she writes an email to us, which is not every day, it's more like every week. But she always has something really interesting to say. So for me, I'm very thankful for being in the group. So yeah, anyway. And I guess the other thing is the Psalms to me were never very compelling, I must confess. And so I thought, oh, well, this might be kind of boring, but I'm still going to learn something. And I have come to, I guess my favorite psalm is 121, which is, I lift my eyes to the hills from where my help comes. And that has really stood by me all these years. And so it's just the loving environment and learning together.
You are a remarkable group, and I always wish, as I'm listening to you, that all the
Can-
people in the churches that have closed down. Walking here.
Finished.
Oh, you should repeat that so people can hear what you said.
Yeah.
That's important.
Okay,
I
give
can-
that
I
back to,
didn't hear
give it
that.
back to Gail.
Give it back to Gail so she.
I just wanted to say that Granya's favorite scripture, I lift my eyes, that is a scripture that we use at family funerals because in the back behind the farmhouses at my grandparents' farm is this enormous hill. It's some kind of geological formation, and many ashes of beloveds are up there. And so when we read this, we read it as I lift my eyes to the hill. And we all talk about going up the hill. It's very important. The thing that I wanted to say about this group is it's very intimate. And I don't mean that in a touchy-feely way. I mean that in a way that I feel so known. And there are times that I get there and I'm just like, everything's fabulous. And then there are days when I'm having a really hard time. And I can say that. There's always at the beginning, there's a bit of a check-in. Sometimes we get a little carried away and never really get to the psalm or the scripture because we're so busy checking in with one another. But it feels like a place that I am known and named. And particularly right now, that feels very important. The other thing that I think is very interesting, particularly the psalms that are the bewailing and whining psalms, feel very current. It's like you can hear the echoes and what people are saying today. They feel very current to me. So it's one of my, it's sort of my touchstone of the week. And particularly as our worship has been, it's recently, I think it's been wonderful, but it's been all over the place. And this feels like something I can count on. And again, the known and named piece is huge for me.
Could you repeat what you said? Yeah.
You just, well, I first of all said that you were all remarkable and thank you for this because I feel you draw us in so completely. And I only wish that all the churches that have shut down could have been here to hear you. I think we would have a much larger congregation as a result of it.
I'd like to ask Joan if she would like to offer some thoughts. Joan has been a member of our group from the beginning. Yeah. No, I don't think so. Go ahead. Oops. Oh, she is muted. Joan, can you unmute?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I found the group to be very heartwarming. And as Nancy said, it became a community of people that cared for one another. And it was very supportive. Yeah. And the group today certainly exemplifies the very best of our church.
Thank you so much, Joan. We had a little feedback, so we're struggling a little bit here. But yeah, we've so appreciated all of your participation over the years. It's just been fabulous. So
I'll say something. You know, folks like Joan.
Okay, now she has to mute. Can you mute now, Joan?
Can I mute? Well, let me see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, she's not muted. Okay, okay, go ahead.
There we go. Isn't it the mystery of the digital world? Digital world, religious world are a lot alike, aren't they? Joan, folks like Joan and Grania will say, quiet in the background. And you know they're thinking something. You know, we'll be talking about something. Am I not on?
Yeah, you're on.
Oh. You know, a lot of what we talk about is really mystery. There's no answer. There's no specific answer. This is a time of Lent, but you know, the ordinary times that we are together, we're doing the liturgical calendar. So we'll be talking about what the pastor is going to be saying the coming Sunday, which I think is kind of important because again, it brings it to light. Sometimes on Sunday, I'm sitting there and I'm not really listening very well. But when you're in front of people, it is a very intimate. Nancy said, use the word intimate. In some ways, it's intimate because you really are face to face with people. A lot of folks don't like Zoom, so they don't want to participate. Maybe they think it's too distant, but it's very
What-
personal.
Right, I find it. I'm one of the Zoom lovers. I think it works. I mean, occasionally it doesn't work, but most of the time it works to really bring people together, both for regular meetings, like deacons or justice, but also for this group, it was, to me, was not at all an impairment to being a community. So
Right.
Oh, the.
So I just wondered, when you get done with Psalm 150, are you going to celebrate?
yeah.
Go ahead.
I would love to be a member of the group. I just have a very serious conflict. My memoir class at Osher is at 11:15,
Oh.
so I can't join you, but I would love to. So, and it's in a fixed position.
These are two separate points, but one is about the creches. Joseph was at our house the other day and he was looking at all of them and he said, "What's this?" Because I had put right by the creche a picture that I had cut out of a black man holding a black baby. And it was the most tender of everything in all the creches. Of course, they have to be, they can't have much expression because of the materials they're made of sometimes. But this was such a tender time. And he said, "What's that? What is, they're black?" And I said, "Well, yes, they are. And what do you think about that?" And he said, "Well, in my country, we were told that Jesus was white
Yeah.
of course, by the missionaries."
Whoa.
And so, well, Joseph, and then I used Bob as an example of how people from that area, and oh, there's Bob right there, and how people in that area looked more like Bob than that anybody that has the picture of the white Jesus. And he said, "Yes, I understand." And it somehow opened him up to a different way of seeing the nativity. And I wonder if it's going to affect what he thinks about Christmas. So that was one thing. And the other thing was, do you remember Anne Klein?
Hmm.
When, well, she was a very special person. And we took a course together that was given by a nun about working on Raymond Brown's story of of Jesus. And it opened our eyes to the fact that Jesus was not born in Bethlehem, and we were singing Little Town of Bethlehem, and it didn't mean anything because there was no such thing, and we were shocked to pieces. And then Dane Gordon spoke to us at church and said something similar. And so we were really depressed for a long time to think that what we were had thought all these years really was not a fact.
Right. You know, one of the things I wanted to share is that the reason we looked at the global crash this year, in my opinion, was to be able to look at the different ways that people do express the nativity in their lives. And we did go to Zimbabwe and to Ethiopia. We have some of those photos. I'm not sure if Pat can show them or not, but I wanted to ask, now I know Susan, you have the mic, but I wanted to ask Bob, when he was a child, what the nativity was like and what it was like to grow up, you know, in your family and celebrate Christmas.
You know, if I give this,
Well, not, I know you'll never get to talk. That's okay. Yeah.
No, I'll be very brief.
Okay.
If I'm able. That's an interesting question, Marie, because folks got to know me a little bit a couple of months ago when I did my faith journey for Sunday Forum. And the creche that I used to see occasionally in front of some churches was not something I really ever gave a second thought to. That's the reality of it. But as I grew older and became aware of the world, I would look at all of the faces with which I could not identify, and still held it at arm's length. But then as I proceeded further along in age, you know, I knew that the simple reality of what happened and with whom 2,000 years ago, I may have blended right in. So it's been a sort of an evolution with me. And I would point out too, I never really, I grew up in a mixed neighborhood. I went to a high school that was very mixed, Franklin High School in those days. But I never ever thought of myself as other than quote unquote white. That was the context of the world in which I lived. I lived with a lot of Sicilians, and they thought of themselves as white also. But none of us realized that we were only allowed to become white relatively recently. Okay. But ethnicity of my type now is very interesting. And if somebody asked me if I was white, I would say I used to be. Because of some of the context in which I find myself once in a while. It's interesting. So going back to your question, Marie, it's been an evolutionary thing. So now I understand so much more and appreciate so much more.
Thank you.
Did you want it?
one thing I was going to mention in terms of, this isn't a whole creche, but early on, I think very, very early on, when we joined the church, Greg was maybe 5 or 6, and David Romig at the Advent Festival, when we used to have the Advent Festival on Saturday afternoon and, you know, potluck Saturday night and back on Sunday morning. And it was all over upstairs here. And anyway, he was at a table making these little creches with driftwood from Grand Manan Island and little figures. Now, and one of our most cherished, it's not a whole creche, but one of our most cherished Christmas things that we get out, and I haven't gotten it out yet till Greg gets home, is Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus on top of this piece of driftwood. And we didn't have cell phones then, so I don't have a picture of it. This was probably 1986. But watching David and Greg together creating this is a memory that I will always, always cherish. And Greg remembers it. So again, when you talk about someone who, when he was 6 or 7, did not, it meant nothing. And Greg, not because of the creche, but Greg is now an active member of UCC Church in Northampton. But these memories do somehow plant themselves, I think, of
And this was a very simple crush, obviously, but a very memorable one.
My creche is 76 years old now. It was given to me the day before my birthday. My sister was in labor and was waiting for me to come home from school. They had bought this creche at one of the dime stores in town. It is the most beautiful, beautiful creche. And I put it up always on my birthday, almost always on my birthday. And my niece was born 3 minutes before my birthday, which wouldn't have happened if I had been the OB nurse. I would have written 1201. She and I are as close as this. So on the bottom of all these little ceramic pieces is the price. 15 cents. 15 cents. The sheep are 2 for $5. It is magnificent. And I just cherish that. And it goes up every year. And someday my daughter will get it, but not yet.
I just wanted to say one more thing about my creche and our experiences in Mexico when I was a kid. One of the things I now realize about the creche is that even though it was made by a Mexican indigenous person, who I'm sure, because I met a lot of indigenous people, that was quite brown, browner than Bob, yes. But the creche is actually, they look white. Pretty much everyone in it looks white. And so when I was doing it, talking about it with the group, I really didn't bring that out. But I had thought about it because I thought, well, that's weird, but it's kind of like relates to kind of like what Joseph said about the family or the nativity being white in Congo, which I was there actually for the conversation, and it was really remarkable that to him, in a country that where nearly everybody is Black, that he identifies the nativity as white. And I think that's kind of universal with, well, maybe not universal, but common with countries that were colonial colonies, I guess I would say. Oh, that's kind of redundant, but you know what I mean. So, but the other thing that was really interesting was we went to a church, this is in the 50s, and we went to a church that had a Black Jesus hanging on the cross. And that was also in a pretty small town in Mexico. But it was the only one I ever saw. So it was, there were people that had the consciousness that Jesus was probably not looking like a European. But not too many people carried that out. So
things are changing slowly. Last night, because the book group just read Elaine Pagel's Miracles and Wonders, and there was a short discussion in there of the movie Mary Magdalene from 2018, and it sounded interesting. So Marie and I watched it last night, and Simon Peter and most of the disciples were Black.
Yes, but that's not projecting. No, we could if you want
Yeah.
to. Could you put the PowerPoint back up again with we have a picture by Janet McKenzie that we've read a book also that was illustrated by her. It was Stations of the Cross, which was very helpful to us. And many of us have seen the very famous picture of Jesus as a black man that Janet produced.
Jesus of the people.
Yeah. And what was the story of that? I don't recall. Jesus. The very last slide. Yeah, there we go.
Janet.
Yeah.
Janet McKenzie is one of, as this says, one of our favorite artists. And I've been moved by several of her books. I wish I could afford one of her paintings. It's just the perspective is so different and so lovely. But this is just one of her many, many things. You can look her up on the internet and see her depictions of a Jesus that sometimes looks like us, but not very often.
Yeah. What's the story of the production of Jesus of the People?
Actually, this was very controversial. When Janet painted, most of her pictures show Jesus as either black or a person of color. Jesus of the People is one where the figure is both male and female, both white and black, also Native American. She's phenomenal. I actually got in touch with her on Facebook. I texted her on, personal message, and I said, we're going to be using your book for our group. And she was very pleased. And again, I've been what you call following her. So as her new paintings come out, we get to see them, and I share them with everybody. Her books are great. You can get some very nice prints and frame them, and they look really good. I don't know what else to tell you, though, about that particular. I know that it was controversial. It did win an award, but at one point, the Roman Catholic Church got down on her about it. But as Peg said, through the ages now, as we're going into the 2000s, we're looking at these different perceptions of what Jesus and the Holy Family would look like or do look like. Yeah, that's it.
Hi, just a comment and a question. Just going back to the concept of Jesus having a darker complexion and the disciples even darker. We all have to understand that in the American context, blackness and darkness by many, many people, even today, we live in a white superiority kind of a mentality, and blackness is a taint. It is something so there are people who are outraged at the idea of a dark Jesus. I worked in a store one time, and some guy went out to lunch, and he came back, and he was almost in tears. He was so angry because he said, "Bob, isn't Santa Claus white?" Literally, he was outraged. I said, Santa Claus is imaginary. He can be whatever you, no, he's white. So transpose that to something on a more serious, more spiritual level. It exists. So we're working our way out of that. Slower lately, but then a quick question. I can see and hear from all of you that your meetings are meaningful and helpful and spiritual for all of you. Have you given any thought to trying to expand a little further into the community outside of DUPC to do something similar? Knowing that I think, there are a great many people who I think would benefit and grow from exposure to what you are talking about and would participate. Have you ever given that a thought or a second thought?
Actually, I'm going to turn this over to Marie in a second, but what I did want to bring up, this is somebody said, what are we doing after Psalm 150? We have talked about what we want to do next. And some of us have said, let's read the epistles, right? Because those were the letters about how to get a church going in the first century, right? And we're in the 21st century and we need to figure out how to keep a church going. So we find that you start with this scripture as a kind of a starting point, right, and a touchstone, and whether that would translate to outside of our church, I think there's something that can be said for that. I'd like to hear from Marie on that.
Well, I don't know. I've thought about sometimes opening the possibility of people coming to actually our group online on Tuesday mornings. But we are, again, as we've said, it's a very personal thing. So to take it further, I would do something different, like maybe a one-time opportunity. We could have it at the church. We could have it, I mean, at the Forum, if people knew. The Forum is really early for a lot of folks. I know that personally for some folks who would be here, but are still sleeping. So, if it were maybe later in the afternoon or something, or Carol said the time is not good. The morning is not good. Yeah, well, there are people that are working and kids that are at school. So, I'm not sure. And it could very well be that this is going on in other places and we don't know about it. There used to be the Divinity School would offer this type of a program. So I don't know, maybe something in collaboration with CRCDS.
You have some thoughts, Grania?
No, just a little.
Go for it.
Yeah, one of the things I had thought about was, and not expressed, but to start sort of spreading out a little bit, to invite members of Spiritus and Quakers to the group. And that would not necessarily accomplish reaching out to the community, but certainly Spiritus has quite a few members from the community in Rochester. So I don't know, just a thought.
So we have a few minutes left, and then we're going to go. I promised I would read you the poem that Anne Weems wrote. One thing we like to do is to keep some sort of blessing at the end of whatever we do. So prayer is also a very big part of what we do. Sometimes it's informal. I wanted you to know that we also use different versions of the Bible. So we'll read a scripture, and if it's really archaic, see, this lady here, Pat, loves the King James. And then the lady down there loves Nan Merrill. I like Nan Merrill too. And then we've got the Message. And a lot of what we're reading is from the International Version. So there again, too, looking at the different ways that this all falls together. There's no one way. There's a lot of ways. So this is the poem that we ended our program with this year. It's called In Search of Our Kneeling Places. In each heart lies a Bethlehem, an inn where we must ultimately answer whether there is room or not. When we are Bethlehem bound, we experience our own advent in His. When we are Bethlehem bound, we can no longer look the other way, conveniently not seeing stars, not hearing angel voices. We can no longer excuse ourselves by busily tending our sheep or our kingdoms. This Advent, let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that the Lord has made known to us. In the midst of shopping sprees, let's ponder in our hearts the gift of gifts. Through the tinsel, let's look for the gold of the Christmas star. In the excitement and confusion and the merry chaos, let's listen for the brush of angel wings. This Advent, let's go to Bethlehem and find our kneeling places. Merry Christmas to you all. You're all invited Tuesday mornings. You can come in late, bring your coffee. You can even go to sleep, which some people do.
It's happened.
Thank you.
Well, come in late is perfect.
Good.